everybody. This is William Del Pilar, and this is the Red, White, and Rude podcast, episode 7. And I am here with my co host, Sean King. Sean, how are you doing, brother? Just New Year's Eve just ended. What did you and the family do, or did you take some private wife time and head on out?
No, we hung out with some friends at a house, and I had my last drinks for the year. Started 75 hard on the first, so no alcohol for the next 75 days. So got in my
Really?
chips and salsa and margaritas because that's
Is
my one weakness.
is there a point to 75 specific days, or just a number you randomly picked?
It's a program by Andy Frisella. I'll give him a shout out, and if people want to listen to his podcast, I'm paying it right now. The Real AF. It's probably one of my favorite podcasts. He says it like it is. I aspire to be able to speak as clearly as him on podcasts, maybe drop as many F-bombs as him someday. But yes, it's his 75 hard. It's his program. It's got 5 rules, and trying to see if my sorry butt can do it for the next 75 days.
Is he like a self-help guru, or would
No,
it be
he's
fitness guys?
he owns First Form Nutrition, and he's got his podcast that he changed over during the pandemic. It used to be more of an entrepreneurial thing, and now it's more of a current events thing, and politics. But
Well,
yeah,
that's
he's
what
a
happened.
nutrition company owner, so it's a mental and physical transformation. It's supposed to give you discipline in both areas of your life.
So you're one, and before I say this, for the record, Sean's accomplished a lot in life, but you're one of the millions. January 1st, here's my new goals. I think we all are. It's like I started working out because I had it because of my foot, and it's healed up, and I don't have, I like the last 3 nights I've been up from 8:30 to 2 in the morning working and trying to get a workout in, and it's difficult to stick to those things. So I would really like to know what the percentage of people who start, like out of Americans, who start, and what's the percentage that are sticking with it by year's end. I'm pretty sure that data is out there. What do you think?
Oh, it's really low, but most of the stuff that's in this program, the diet part of it that's the easiest part for me, quite honestly, because I have no
Well, that's because
problem
you're well
discipline.
regimented.
Yeah, that's no problem. The other parts, I got to drink a gallon of water a day, which is actually more difficult than I thought. I've got
Wow.
my little half-gallon container here. I'm through one, on to number 2 right now, and it's still got about 5 or 6 hours that I'd like to finish it in, and got to
Yeah,
read 10 pages in a book. That's no
there you
problem.
go.
I like to read every day, so that's easy. The hard part is the 2 workouts a day is the tough part. The 2 workouts a day and the drinking the gallon of water.
And people, Sean is not in his 20s, so it gets harder as you get older. The final question before we get to the show, if you don't mind, what book are you reading?
It's called Functional Training. It's a workout book, actually.
Well, I
I,
kind of
I
figured that. And for the audience, Sean is a legitimate workout king. Multiple martial arts, workout, got 2 workouts. I mean, at your age, I'm like, get the hell out of here. But good for
well,
you,
the
and
hard
you
part is
inspire others.
one of them has to be outside every day, and it's in the 30s out here, so that makes it a little difficult right now.
Well, that solves a dual problem. You're also adding. I think I spend too much time inside, and I think I'm missing a lot of the world. And I don't mean by the experiences, but just by being outside in the sun is what I'm talking about. It's a different energy. So good for you. And with that, let's get into our 2023 part 2 top stories of the year. And we are going to start it out with Jada Pinkett Smith's book that came out a few months ago. And Sean, the book is a memoir. It's called Worthy. And she talks about her separation with Will Smith for 7 years. Talk to us a little bit about that marriage.
I don't know if you could call it a traditional marriage, and I believe Will Smith is quoted as stating that Jada didn't believe in traditional marriage, and from the outside looking in, it doesn't look like it's been very traditional in many forms. So the book came out, and in that book, like you talk about, it says that they've been separated for 7 years. That was the big revelation in the book.
7 years is a long time to be separated and the world thinks you're together. I mean, at the end of the day, what was the reason for the separation?
I don't know if she the tidbits we got. I didn't read the memoir. Just the interview and stuff stated that they were exhausted from with trying in their relationship. So I don't know exactly what all the problems were involved, but they were exhausted from trying, and that's what led to their separation.
I got to be honest. We are no different than animals. What separates us is the ability to think for ourselves, to look at an issue and not follow our instincts like animals do, and that's what kind of separates us. But I always tell people, marriage is a job. It biologically we are meant to reproduce as a species. It's why I look at like the transgender and the gay community. Hey, to each their own, but as a species, we are meant to reproduce. And I think marriage may stymie that a bit, because people fall out of love, they lose interest, they don't get married for the right reasons. And it sounds like their issues tended to be more sexual than anything else, because from the notes, the research I did, I didn't get anything out of the fact that, or out of a potential thought process that they didn't care for each other as human beings or didn't love each other. Everything seemed to having more of that traditional open marriage. For people who don't know, from 60s, 70s, a term, maybe longer, that they love one another, they're with one another, but they're in the bedroom with others. Is that kind of what you got out of this?
Well, yeah, this whole big thing is, well, but you learn they were separated, and the slap amazingly, I guess, got them back together. So I don't know why all of a sudden that made her, you know, all of a sudden say, hey, this is the man for me. Let's get back together after this long of time. But I guess slapping around Chris Rock was enough to make her think this is the big, tough, burly man she wants to be with, slapping around the skinny 50-something-year-old comedian.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think what she saw was somebody who was sticking up for her, regardless of the consequences. Women, at the end of the day, Sean, I mean, you're a man and guy in the sense you're a machismo, you're a traditional man, traditional man, all the good stuff. I'm not talking about the bad stuff about it. And women love that. I don't care if it's the feminazi, as Rush Limbaugh used to call him. There's times when a man is a man. A conservative, God-fearing Christian told me the following, and I will quote her, and I will ask John to do the beat. But she said, William, sometimes a woman just wants a man to be a fucking man. And I think that's what she saw in that moment. But wasn't there an affair also that was part of the issue here,
I
or
believe her
maybe it
words
wasn't?
were an entanglement. Excuse me, get that correct. She used the word entanglement. Uh, she had an entanglement with a friend of her son, a rapper. Let's see if I can get this right. August Alsina. I think that's how his last name's pronounced. But
Looks right to me.
yeah, he was 23 and she was 44 at the time, and they had an
Damn.
entanglement, and it went viral. The use of the word entanglement. And interesting thing, I did a little more research, and August ended up putting out a song called "Entanglement" with rapper Rick Ross, in which he sings. This is a quote that I haven't listened to the song, but I'm going to as soon as I can now. I just found this like in the last minute or two. The lyric is, "You left your man just to fuck with me and break his heart." So he's throwing down some pretty harsh words there
Well, you know what,
regarding the
Sean?
entanglement.
I just had this conversation. I swear to God, yesterday. Somebody, a woman who I know who is single, and she's out in the dating world, about your age. And I asked her, well, are you robbing the cradle? Is it rocking the cradle or robbing the cradle? Robbing the cradle, maybe. I said it jokingly. And she mentioned she's about a couple of instances, but it made me remember in my 40s after I sold my business. And in this world, when you have certain accomplishments, women love that too. powerful men attract attractive women. I'm not saying that to say it. Look at history. Look at just Hollywood. Look at the business world. And My friend, God bless his heart, owned a bar. We shut it down. I came to visit. We were just, we're being guys, drinking. So my other friend had brought a couple of his friends who were women. Once they found out who I was, and they were good looking, they didn't want anything to do with the other guys. They were all hitting on me. And I was married, and luckily I was there with friends and still very protective. But I was talking to them in their early 20s. And I realized, oh my God, I had nothing in common with these women. You know, it was, what do they call it when something happens? It was an epiphany for me in realizing it validated, yeah, these marriages aren't built off of love. They're built off of lust. And maybe some of the lucky ones turn into love. I'm not asking you for experiences, but have you ever been in situations at your age now when you're talking to somebody younger and you realize it goes off in your head, these people haven't experienced squat. It's not that we're smarter, we're just more experienced in life, and you realize you can't connect with them. Has that happened to you yet, or am I the only one living in that world?
I won't say it's so much experience. I think I started realizing it in my 30s when you could, go out drinking and you talk to people and, the other people are, females in their 20s and you go, I'm just at a different point in my life. I do not have anything in common to talk about. They're still in college, doing whatever. And I'm at a point where, well, in my 30s, I've already had at least a kid or two. So where I'm at in my life and where they're at is just totally different things. And the stuff that you know about is different, What
Right.
I'm reading today is, they're watching, we'll use today. If I were to talk to a 20-year-old, she'd probably tell me what's on TikTok while I'm telling her about,
Oh yeah,
the latest,
yeah. Oh,
political
it makes,
stuff,
I
like if
understand.
The Epstein left is going to come out.
Yeah, we'll have a podcast. We'll have a whole podcast on that. Now, the final note I want to ask you is: does she mention, if I remember correctly, and you can expound on this, they were actually headed towards a divorce before the Chris Rock incident? Is that true?
That's what she said. And she said that now, after this happened, she realized that in the aftermath, she wanted to be his wife no matter what. So, if your marriage is failing, go beat up a skinny comedian and you can get your woman back. That's my
unless that
advice.
skinny, unless that skinny comedian fights back. Sean, I always tell people about our training that you gave me because I wasn't very good because it wasn't a true focal point, but I wanted to learn. I always tell people, yeah, if you don't know any martial arts, I'll kick your ass. But if you know anything about fighting, I'm running. So it does pay to know a little self-defense there. And with that, we shall say goodbye to Jay. Actually, I want to make one more comment before we go. Love transcends all. So if they love one another, their family loves one another, then screw the rest of the world. And the reason I say that, it's easy to be judgmental against the Smiths, and I am. I mean, a transgender kid, messed up marriage, in the public eye. But if they love each other, transcends everything, screw the world and keep doing what you're doing. Not that I think you're great role models, but if you're happy and in love, screw the rest of the world. And with that, Sean, and I apologize, this is your topic. Any final words on the Jada Pinkett Will Smith issue? And I guess with final word, I would ask, what does this tale? What do you get out of it in terms of a life lesson, or is it just typical Hollywood gossip?
The life lesson is I feel a little better about myself. I haven't had to go beat up anybody to keep my wife around. And I got a good laugh. It's still good comedy material because I just watched Dave Chappelle's special, and the slap is brought up in there because he was touring with Chris Rock over the past year. So maybe that's something we can talk about next week is Chappelle's special and his jokes on the slap. But
We will.
no,
We will.
that'll
Sean's seen it. I haven't seen it. I was given the assignment by my partner. He says, you got to talk about Dave Chappelle. He's going off politically on these people. And I'm like, oh, I saw the previews. We will. So let's move on, though. This is a very deep story. There's going to be some boring spots. Well, not boring spots. There's just so much. We may not remember it all. But I want to get the basics because this is important in terms of how it affects us. Look, Hollywood is an indoctrination. industry. And it's not Hollywood being Hollywood. Entertainment is an indoctrination institute, all the way back to the Roman Colosseum. Part of the reason it was built, there were 1 million people from various cultures who believed in various gods, and it was a violent time. Part of the reason they built the Colosseum was so they could purge that violence by watching violence. So entertainment has always been political, has always been in the crux of everything. Andrew Breitbart said politics is downstream of pop culture, and what he meant is we're percolating at the top of the river, yet politics is downriver, and the people down there have no clue what's happening. So I wanted to talk about this topic. So the SAG-AFTRA strike is now over. And I want to talk about what the writers won. But it was a labor dispute between the Alliance Motion Picture and Television Producers and the Actors Union. So SAG-AFTRA is what the Screen Actors Guild is called. AMPTP is what the Television Producers, Alliance of Motion Picture Television Producers. And then there was the Screen Actors Guild, and the dispute was from July 14th through November 9th with those parties involved. And you've already forgotten what party is what, but we'll get into that. And in 2023, it caused a massive disruption. In fact, Sean, I had yet to see any new material on television or cable streaming or network because the strike lasted so long. So it did make an impact financially, economically. It did some massive. California took a massive beating because of it. But at the end of the day, you moronic Californians who keep voting these morons in, Hollywood had so many tax breaks. And when COVID happened, the government screwed us, the people, in favor of Hollywood. So we didn't lose as much economically as people want to think, because they also now do a lot of filming, New Mexico, Vancouver, the East Coast, Georgia, overseas. So it's not as I painted. But it was a labor dispute. There was solidarity with the writers and the actors. And this was the first big major dispute since 1980. And the strike ended November 9th. It was the longest strike in SAG-AFTRA history. About 45,000 jobs were lost. And I question that number, because when leftists give out numbers, they always paint it in the worst scenario possible. 6.5 billion lost in Southern California. I question that as well. And the hardest pain, which I believe was very painful, was felt among the below the line workers who had to sell or mortgage their homes, wipe out their IRAs to survive. And I don't care. I really don't care, people. And you may look at me as an a-hole, but there's a reason for not caring. Or maybe I should rephrase that. Yeah, and no, I don't care because I don't have anything to do with that world. These people brought this garbage upon themselves by being greedy. The reason that the strike was done for leverage. They wanted the strike for leverage because they were actually in negotiations, Sean, for a new contract. So they said, hey, let's strike. They're not going to give us what we want, so let's go ahead and strike. They said it was economic fairness, and they want economic fairness. Look in your own freaking house. You blame the corporate CEOs, rightfully and righteously, for earning hundreds of millions a year. But yet you don't look within your own wheelhouse at actors who earn in excess of $60 million a movie. And I'm talking Jack Nicholson from the original Joker, that far back, So who knows what it is now? So here's a timeline. July 14th, the strike officially begins. September 1st, they gained some leverage. SAG-AFTRA went to the gaming world and their peers there and authorized a strike, and they overwhelmingly approved of it. So they were looking to purposely hurt other industries for their own financial gain. In October 2nd, they began negotiations with AMPTP. October 11th, negotiations broke down. SAG-AFTRA, as usual, got greedy. They wanted to tax us, the subscribers. So whatever subscribers, whether streaming, cable, or whatnot, they wanted a piece of the pie. So in essence, they were trying to do an end around, going to the corporation. So for example, ESPN gets $9 to $10 per subscriber a month. That's a lot. That's in the billions. They wanted a piece of that. And I commend the corporations for saying, go bleep yourself. They accused the AMPTP of bully tactics. Look, that goes back and forth. It was a bully tactic when they went to the gaming industry to get that to strike. Now, here's what gets me angry. On October 19th, some heavy Hollywood actors, Sean, Clooney, Streep, De Niro, and some other heavyweights but lesser known, came up with a plan to help the strikers. But since it would mean the actors would have to pay more into the system, the union said, no, they don't want to help to work together. They want to just bully and take everything from others for themselves. They're Hollywood swine. SAG-AFTRA said no. They want nothing to do to pay for their own health and well-being, and want the studios to completely take care of them. The outcome ends at 12 o'clock. November 9th, the strike ends. Negotiations had already resumed. The day before, an agreement was made, and 78.3% approved. Now, this is the kicker. This is what gets me angry too, because these are political numbers before the voter fraud with mail-in ballots happened, where we went from 20 to 30% voters to 80, 90, 100% in some districts. Only 38% turnout for the largest strike since 1980. Sean, what's your take on that? Everything I explained, I mean, it's no doubt it comes across this was a heavy issue. The economic issues, the lost jobs, revenue, everything. And only 38% of that guild or that union turns out. What does that tell you as a human being, as somebody looking on the outside? And hell, you got somebody within the industry. I mean, from all those perspectives, what do you say?
Well, I'm not going to say it's just a typical industry thing. From my experience, I've been part of what they'll call a union, but it was an association. And whenever we had voting, I don't think we had any better turnout than 50% at best, almost every time we had a voting. And then, everybody would come in and bitch about, what happened, the results. And I'm like, well, 50% of these people didn't even vote. I always vote, so at least then I can say I have the right to bitch.
You're right. You're right, Sean.
So
That's an old political saying.
So 38%, I'm sure they're big celebrities. They got other important things to do.
Yeah. They got to go talk about climate change.
Or
while they get into their big 707s.
Doesn't George Clooney have a tequila he's got to put out and stuff like that? It's not, it's a rough life.
What do you think of the fact that an AMTP executive, an anonymous one, and let me tell you, people, when leftist rag or union starts talking anonymous, odds are in today's day and age, it's not true. And that's because the New York Times, the Washington Post, and other rags have been blatantly caught using the anonymous source, only to be found out it's not true. How many anonymous sources were there for the Western Hoax? Too many. But they said that this individual, and I believe that somebody said this, but I don't believe the quote and how they put it out, because it was a way to make the AMPTP look bad. But they said their goal is to allow things to drag on until union members started losing their apartments and losing their houses. And he said it in essence to force SAG-AFTRA into less favorable negotiating positions. But both sides do that. That's part of the negotiation. Whoever has the deeper pockets is going to try to drag it out. When I took a consortium to court, Sean, a couple of decades ago, I told my lawyer, I know how much they're spending on legal fees and how much money they're bleeding monthly. I don't want you to resolve this. I want you to drag it out, because nobody's going to buy this consortium if there's legal issues. Meaning I knew how limited they were long term. And within 2 days later, I got a great buy, 4 years, full paid, full help, and everything. I got what I wanted. So it's human nature to fight with everything you got. My question to you is, what do you think about that as an overall tactic, as a general human being? And two, don't you think this happens on both sides?
Well, yeah, this is it. This could have been any anonymous source. I mean, every anonymous source probably would have said the same thing. Yeah, you're trying to make the other side more miserable than yourself, so they give in quicker. That's how life works.
Look, I get you. And the irony is, people like us, we know, top stars earn salary in percentages, which is an abuse now. They were given percentages when the economy was struggling in the 70s, 80s. So to offset some of the costs of the movie, they said, we'll give you a percentage. Now they want top dollar and a percentage. And these producers caved in, and they should have. Some of the top stars earn 27 million. So they're attacking this other side, but yet they have a lot of money on their own side. It's a typical elitist mentality from a leftist Hollywood. So let's go to the final segment of topic. And again, people, this is important because this is where our entertainment comes from. This is where political indoctrination happens. They are two extremely important aspects of our world that directly influence us in both positive and negative. We all need enjoyment to relieve stress, but when you're indoctrinating somebody to not critically think or to believe a false narrative or an outright lie, there's danger. So that's why I paid a lot of attention to this. So what SAG-AFTRA won? They won more money. They got pay increases. They got residual increases. They got bonuses for working on streaming shows that become especially popular. And they got increased pension and health contributions. Now, that's neither here nor there for me, meaning that's what all unions fight for. Any comments on that?
I'd like some increased health benefit contributions, but I guess I have to
Yeah.
identify as an illegal alien in California, and then I get it for free, according to Newsom now. But
Oh God.
there's
Or
my
else
little
take
there's
Carl
my little
DeMaio out.
place.
Or
There's
take
my
Carl
little
DeMaio out, right?
my health insurance. We just went through the whole re-registering at the end of the year, and it's absolutely, I'm getting destroyed on healthcare costs. It's
I'm not gonna lie, we
but
pay about
this is an
15,000 a year.
entertainment podcast. I'm not going to get into that.
No, I
We'll
get you.
skip
I get
ahead.
you. Uh, we went from 3K a year before Obamacare to we're now paying over 15,000 a year for the equivalent type of medical coverage. And I don't even trust a doctor. I would not put it past a doctor. This is not conspiracy. Human nature. Give me that jab without me knowing. My sister, a nurse, has told me that there are bad people out there who do crap like that, and it's extremely, extremely rare. But she's like, always be aware. Now transparency. I do agree with this. There was some great transparency in the sense that streamers must provide a WGA, not the members. So I assume it's the board or the high level executive with numbers of who's watching what. Now, the reason I like that is I'm just a numbers junkie. So I always like to see what's popular, what's not. And honestly, Sean, I also base my watching preferences sometimes on that. If a show's not being watched, I'm like, I'm not going to invest time to watch a show that's going to get canceled. So I thought that was a good thing. What's your thought on that?
I can't believe you do this much thinking before you watch a show. I just
No, no,
watch
no,
the
no,
synop.
no.
I watch I read the synopsis, and if they have a little 1 minute clip I can watch, then I watch that. And I go, that looks good. And then if the first episode's good, I'll watch the second episode. There's not too much thinking in my entertainment process in that
Well, no, I
aspect.
get you. I
If
get
you're
you. And
looking at
I'm with you.
numbers,
What's that?
if you do that much number work, congrats to you. I don't know how you get anything else done.
No, actually, Sean, I became like this over the last 10 years because of Netflix. If you'll see a show, I don't want to watch a series that has what do they call a cliffhanger, and then find out it was canceled. They invest all that time, so that's what I really look out for. And I also read up on potential shows. I'm not into woke shows, but sometimes you look at it. It's like I was looking at new shows, and every one, like 10 out of the first 20, how you go boom, 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 they come up. They were like all 100-pound female leads beating up 250 pounds. I'm like, I'm just not into that garbage anymore because that's what it is. It's garbage. Because there's so much out there, I do try to take a look because I have limited viewing time. I don't live in front of the boob tube. And ironically, we were talking about Reacher. That show Reacher. So heads up, everybody.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal show. I know we're digressing. 10 seconds. What do you think of it so far?
Well, I watched the whole first season, so I've seen the first season, and I'm through I think 2 or 3 episodes of the second season here. I mean, I enjoy it.
Oh,
It's not,
I like it. Kick-ass show. I think it's acting. I mean, the plots are just like any other action adventure, but the acting, the writing, it's been good. And the guy looks like a beast in season 2 compared to season 1. But I digress enough. Some more they got out of it, Sean, was guaranteed staffing, which bothers me. They should never have acquiesced to this because what they I applaud them for this. I don't like it when a company employs people for short term so they don't have to pay health benefits and things like that. But I get it, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get them to create to do away with the independent contractor style environment where studios pay as little as possible. However, that to me goes against capitalism. It's a supply and demand with the market, and this agreement will not be sustainable and will eventually not be moving forward with future agreements because AI is making its way. There are millions of hours of comedy shows. As AI develops, they're going to be able to take the best of the comedy shows genre, or I'm sorry, not comedy, but every genre out there, and they're going to do what they do. But the writers get whether you're a writer, a showrunner, or whatever, there's different rules, but they get a lot of pros and cons. I'm not for that because, again, it goes against supply and demand capitalism, but I understand their point because corporations will abuse it. So I guess if you put a gun to my head, I would say it was a win for the union. I would support as a human being. But as a supporter of capitalism, I can't say I support it. I don't support it because I support capitalism because it's what you call corrupt capitalism. So I guess push comes to shove, I side with the union on this. Am I looking at it wrong? What are your thoughts?
well, I'm pretty extreme on the whole capitalism thing too. I think there shouldn't be a fixed amount of people, a fixed pay. The capitalism will work that all out. Seeing this whole minimum wage for $20 to work at McDonald's, we're seeing how well that turns out. They're having technology take over that, and I think in the long term, that's what's going to happen here. They're going to have AI by the time the next contract negotiation comes up, take over most of these people's jobs. So they're winning. They think in the short term of, hey, we're all going to be, they got to staff 20 of us and we all get paid this amount. But in the long term, those people are all going to lose their jobs, much like the people at McDonald's and the fast food places are.
Right. Another analogy is television and radio. When the television came out, the politicians started to get bombarded by people within the radio industry to save radio because they knew it was coming. The market will dictate that. AM radio was considered dead until Rush Limbaugh came around and revitalized that complete industry, and it's dying off again. Rush just passed, but the point is they're trying to stave off evolution of business of technology, and AI is here to stay. And I got to be honest, there's a lot of shows I will after I've decided to watch that show. And I'm like, the writing is so piss poor. It looks like a 12-year-old. And that's 70, 80%. I mean, look at all the shows Netflix has canceled. You can't, it's one thing to deliver a swine message, a bad message, a false narrative, a lie. But if you don't even have good writing, you can't even deliver your message. And that's why Netflix and others came out with a barrage the past year and a half of even movies and shows that were completely done, just shelling them because they knew the audience wasn't there. They knew it was a bad show. When they did the shows, they were all on a political leftist high, and now they're realizing there are other ways, so they're taking a tax write-off. But that's where I think AI will help Hollywood. It will improve the writing from crap, and it's terrible. It means that Hollywood writing isn't even average writing. It isn't even up to par. It's the lowest form of quality writing I have found in this world in terms of entertainment. So I think you are correct. And the studios did respond, Sean. Netflix, Disney, Warner Brothers, Discovery. They formed a streaming innovation alliance to advocate federal and state policies that benefit the streaming industry. Translation, another form of corporations coming together to build another lobby group to get breaks. So this is where the union will lose because of the lobbying. The new laws will be made to just counter a lot of the stuff. So to me, that's what this all means. This strike just delays it the eventuality of AI taking over a lot of writing. And before we leave it, that was the last point I wanted to make. But I wanted to ask you, from this perspective, where did you stand? I had no pity for these people. Here's why, America. These same people wanted us to die. They wanted us quarantined. They told us to suck it up during the pandemic, leave our jobs. It's okay to be locked up. But yet they were given exemptions. You saw the video. I saw the video. Hundreds of millions saw it. Remember that young woman, a working class woman, owned a bar or some kind of restaurant, and she's so angry. Tears are coming out of her eyes as her phone. She's filming the big tents with all the tables and chairs set up for a production shoot of a Hollywood show or movie. And they weren't 6 feet apart, but yet she's told you can't open your store because of the pandemic. But yet, right in her parking lot, all this is happening. Not to mention the mom and pop shops, I'm digressing a bit, being told you have to close your doors, but Vons, Walmarts, and all those other corporate owned stores were open. But sticking to the Hollywood, that's why I had no pity for these people. That's why I was like, you lost your mortgage? Now you know how most of America felt, the working class. You lost your health benefits? That's how most of the working class in America felt. So go screw yourself, because I'm not supporting you. What you get is what you get, and I don't care. I can live with it. It's not my industry. It doesn't concern me. It doesn't affect me. That's how I felt about their strike. I'm not saying I was justified, but that's how I felt. What were your thoughts when you saw these people asking for help, or the pity me stories about how they were doing? What went through your mind?
Well, I do remember first off that video. That woman, I think, owned a cafe or a restaurant, and she wasn't allowed to open, and they were filming. I think they had the tents set up and were, being fed in that shopping center by, probably another catering company.
Yep.
And, they're filming the whole thing, but she wasn't allowed to open. And, that goes back to my whole garbage of what's essential. We had the liquor stores were essential. Pot shops were essential, but this poor woman business wasn't essential, but this Hollywood studio is essential. Let me just say it. I like watching some TVs and movies, but if this strike had gone on and I didn't get any new stuff for the next year or two, I guarantee I would have been all right. I would have been all right. So there was not too much sympathy for me.
Yeah, and people that's about as angry as you'll see Sean. I could sense there was a little tinge of anger with some of the words there. I agree, Sean. Now you can call me a bad human being, and I'm looking at it from a top down. The one aspect I hate of myself, which is a good aspect, I don't hate myself for it, but I'm a softie. When I'm actually in the situation, I'll help any human being. But looking at it from a top down role, I was like, go screw yourselves, people. And you're right. I didn't need anything there because of streaming. I rewatched. I discovered TV Land. I discovered TV Land, that Hot in Cleveland, one of the funniest shows I've ever watched. Frasier, Cheers. We have access to old quality television now, and so the strike was affecting me very slightly because there's a few shows that are new that I'm like, oh, okay, when's it coming back? But overall, screw you, Hollywood. And with that. Am I too harsh, Sean? Am I being too harsh here?
Well, no. If you're gonna talk about Hollywood and the whole COVID response, I could just go on a whole spiel on that. I will never forgive or forget on any of that stuff. So
exactly.
Better off I just don't get started.
You're right. And I think what I saw in that strike was they were feeling a little bit of the pain the average American felt that they never experienced for 3 years. And even today, in LA County, they're bringing back the mask mandate. So take it for what it's worth. All right, let's move on to a heavy topic here. Andrew Tate. He made the news at the very end of 2022, but all this mess with him carried on into 2023. Sean, give us an overview of who Andrew Tate is.
Well, he's mainly known as a social media personality now, but he was a former kickboxer, and he had a decent record and fought in some big matches. So, he wasn't just some tomato can kickboxer. He had a pretty good record and, was in some reputable organizations, but he's mainly known now as a social media personality, um, for saying outlandish stuff, according to most people. He's the third most Googled person in 2023. So that's,
That was shocking.
yeah, everybody seems to know about him. My kids know about him.
Really?
So oh yeah. Well, my son's in the teenage years, so all the teenage boys probably like some of the stuff he says and does. So it gets around.
And Sean, I know he's well liked by a lot of conservatives, not this one, but he doesn't bother or affect me enough to care. I'm like, let the law be the law. But his shtick is male masculinity, machismo, a man being a man. And some of his comments have been incredibly controversial. However, that extends into what's happening for him now. First of all, talk to us a little bit. You said he's a social media figure. A little bit about his platforms. What's he on? How does he? I assume he has a lot of followers.
Well, I would have thought being the third most Googled person that he'd have more, but the problem might be that he keeps getting his account suspended. So like on X, he has 8.5 million followers, but it's been suspended like 3 times. He just got reinstated again in November of 2022. He's been banned from Facebook and Instagram. On Instagram, when he got banned, he had 4.7 million followers.
Wow.
He's been suspended from YouTube. He's on Rumble with two accounts, the higher one being 1.74 million. So to be as big as he is actually a little surprising to see how low his numbers are in some of these things. But the thing I got from it is, and the way my kids have learned about it, people repost video clips of him saying stuff on TikTok, on their Instagram. So he may not personally have big social media accounts, but his persona is getting out there because people are reposting this stuff on their accounts.
Right, right. And in his defense too, everything's timing. If you're a big celebrity on social media 10 years ago, you exponentially got X amount more than what somebody who enters today. And you're right, getting removed, added. That's why his numbers are what they are. But those numbers are more than enough for him to make a lot of money. Once you hit about 15,000 followers, you can really monetize if you're smart. And with millions like he has, even though he's lost many more millions, he can monetize that. But before we get to the monetization and some of the issues, his issues began with Big Brother, didn't they?
Yeah, he was on the British uh, Big Brother, and he got removed because he was a suspect in an open rape investigation, and that was in 2016. And that case was finally closed in 2019. So he had that hanging over his head for 3 years. No charges were filed.
And give the man credit because the male machismo he talks about, I don't always agree with, but I do believe that men and women should have a spine, and he refused to back down. So where others would have been destroyed by this, he was like, "Go screw y'all, I'm innocent," and he just keeps going. So kudos for him. Now after Big Brother, he's back out on his own. It seems like him and his brother figured out a way to make money. Didn't they have some? If I remember correctly, they had an online course, but I forget what it was called.
Well, the first one, it was called Hustlers University, and quite honestly, I had to. It wasn't until I read this that I remembered back in the day seeing one of his old Twitter accounts. I believe I found it through, is his name pronounced Cernovich? He's a right wing, I think, like journalist type person.
Mike Cernovich. Yeah, he actually
Yes.
is a love hate guy. He says a lot of outlandish things just to gain attention. He's very aloof on Twitter. I follow him and I've retweeted him. He's responded to me. He has no clue who I am. He's got over 1 million followers, but he's really in love with himself. But he's controversial too, and he supports the Tates of the world. If I remember correctly, but do not quote me on that. Or does
Yeah,
he
I
not
think
support it?
I must have back in the day. I was, still on Twitter, and I think he posted, retweeted, whatever one of Tate's things. So of course I went over and checked out Tate, and that's where I remember seeing this Hustler University and scrolling through and just reading stuff and thinking, well, this guy's, I agreed with some things he said, and then other stuff he posted, I was like, oh, come on, people are paying him to go to Hustler University, but that's where he got his generated most of his money, I guess, back in the day.
Well, you know what? If I remember correctly, you said he had like 100,000 subscribers, and that's enough to sustain a business about 10 people annually. Those amount of subscribers, and if it was just him and maybe his brothers, a family member, a couple others, they were generating serious bank and creating. They were becoming rich. It would be my take. Now after the online courses, and does he still have those going?
I think it's been renamed. I'm trying to, it went to War Room, then it may have a new name now that I'm not up to date on. Let me see if I have it here. I think it was War Room, and then there's a new one that's less offensive sounding, but I can't recall it right this second.
Now, Sean, uh, uh, some of his controversy has come about because of these online courses, telling men to be men, but people have taken it as he's kind of conning people. He's emotionally abusive to some of the women, and he's trying to teach some of this stuff. I haven't paid that much attention to it. I just don't care for it. Meaning, I get what you're doing, Andrew. I'm not even gonna say God bless you like I do to everybody. Do what you do. Uh, uh, but from what I've read, I don't agree with something just because it's legal doesn't make it morally right. And that's where I think he crosses the line with a lot of morality issues. And I'm not talking biblical. I'm talking common sense stuff. You don't convince a woman it's okay to showcase her body on the camera against her will, and where she eventually does. And even though she's agreeing to it, it's not in her best interest. It's not illegal. It's not something I condone. So I'm not a big fan of his. But isn't that kind of and I'm generalizing, but isn't that pretty much what the controversy is with him not talking his legal issues, but just with how people see him?
It's definitely has to do with how he talks about women and you know how they're supposed to be treated, and he almost he's from the little I've I'm not in depth on him, but I've seen some stuff where he almost thinks of them as they're
Objects.
secondary.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
You know,
and coming from a Latino background, I see it all the time in my family, extended family, when I go travel. And God bless my mother. I grew up with three sisters, a mom, and an aunt. While my dad was away in Vietnam, so I was blessed not to look at women in that fashion. Because look, it is a knock on that women have to deal with this stuff. Now, I'm not defending women 100%. A lot of the Nazis out there too, especially the ones that want their cake too. They want the modern woman, but when it comes to money, they want the traditional man. So that leads us to the United. He moved from the United Kingdom to Romania, and that's where his major issues happened. So talk to us a little bit about the move and what happened.
yeah, he moved there in 2017, and I guess everything's been good until December of 2022. He was arrested with his brother and along with two women. They were suspected of human trafficking and forming an organized crime group. In essence, that they coerced people into creating pornography, and that they financially benefited from.
And that's my
Um,
issue. Is like I don't know what the laws are in Romania, but I'm pretty sure those laws are legal here, meaning they could do that. But it's just what you're doing to the psyche of a mind of a human being. You're not building them up. You're tearing them down. And there's some women who'll be like, hey, no problem. They're in the late 20s, early 30s, 40s. They're adult women. They can make their own decisions. My issue are with the legal age teens or the early 20s, the ones where you can really mess with their minds. Now that's what they're accused of. Talk to me about, did they have freedom? Meaning, were they just investigation going, or you know where I'm headed with that question? Talk to us a little bit about the whole process of their ability to move in terms of still being innocent, not found guilty, and yet still being treated like prisoners.
Yeah, they like if you don't agree with them, that's one thing. I had a little issue with how I guess Romanian law seems to handle. They were arrested in March of 2023, and and after that, it's I mean they got their stuff taken. That's my big thing. They got 29 assets, including 15 cars and more than 10 properties, totaling almost $4 million taken from them, and they still have not gotten that back. So that's going
They
on a
may not get
year.
it back.
They've lost. Uh, Looking at the way Romanian law works, I don't think they're going to. Um,
Hold on,
they
hold on. Hold on. I got news for you. They got asset seizures here. And it started with, oh, we're only going to go after the cartel and mafias and things like that, where they seize the asset. And before a person is found innocent or guilty, or even before a trial starts, the government sells it. That's a known fact that a lot of people have been trying to get changed, especially libertarians, but that the government doesn't do. In fact, in the 90s, the state of California was doing that with people who didn't have a will. And the reason I know this, I worked in that industry. It took a court action to stop California. They knew somebody could call in, hey, I'm the daughter, they didn't have a will, and California would still sell the assets to get the money. And that's human selfishness, human ego. So they do that here too, Sean. Yeah, maybe not in every case, but it is a terrible thing that it's extended from the criminals to the honest, hardworking Americans.
Well, from what I understand here, because I know the big thing to fund like certain police departments programs, like I'll say
Right,
helicopters, the fuel, they use drug money. But from
right.
what I've understood, that is, it's the person has to be convicted because I've impounded, lots of money, and it stays an impound until the person's convicted, and then they spend the money.
Nope,
So
nope.
that's a little bit different than well, I would we'll have to double check on that, but I don't see that flying that if a person's innocent, they don't get back their 500K if it's proven not to be drug money. Um, so it's as far as I'm aware, it's spent after they're found guilty.
Yeah.
I don't know how Romania is going to work, but
We
I will do a double check on that for you.
Yeah, that's a big thing with libertarians. And I found it a gas as a child of 10 or 12 when I learned of it. And I learned of it watching Walter Cronkite on CBS News. This has been
Okay,
going on
well,
for decades. And I'm like you. I'm like, no way, no way. You can't have anything taken until you're found guilty. And even then, it's only stuff from the illegal process. And that was a very big shock to my world. That was what started it wasn't the first thing, but it was one of the issues when I started questioning our government. And I was a child. I was, well, not a child, but in my teens. So, and I will be the first to say, I may not be 100% correct in my assessment, but I'm pretty sure I'm close to it, and it has happened because I've read it. We will open the show next week with the answer to that, exactly what happens, because it's an important topic. I can't be giving bad info if I'm wrong, and I will apologize, but I don't think so. Okay, talk to me about the detention, the house arrest, uh, 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 in terms of their freedom.
well, they originally, they were detained and they can be prolonged by 30 days for longer detention, which of course they got. And then that can be prolonged for a maximum of 180 days, which of course they got. So then after that, they got moved to house arrest. And then the house arrest was set from April till August. And then there was a whole bunch of appeals on if they could leave house arrest, and after several appeals back and forth, uh, they were allowed to leave house arrest, but then they couldn't uh, leave. They had to stay within Romania, and that's only a big thing because Andrew Tate's mom, I believe, had a stroke or a heart attack, and he was asking if he could leave this past December to go visit her, and he could not. So they've been ongoing with this for a whole year, and he's still not even allowed to leave the country to visit an ill mom in the UK. And I'm obviously for treating criminals like they need to be treated, but I'm also used to the US. If you're out on bail or whatever, you know, how long does
No,
he
I
he's
get you.
got house arrest, and I always think of house arrest, well, anyways,
They're
I think
screwing him, is what you're saying.
yes, I think and there's no trial date set, and due to the complexity of the investigation, and I'll put that in quotes, complexity, trial isn't expected to start for several years. So they could be
That's
sitting in
bull.
Romania for, the next 3 to 4 years and never get to leave. That's a little
Well,
harsh, whether you like him or not. And maybe his crimes are terrible. I haven't seen enough details to say that I can convict him just by looking at some of the stuff here. But, four
well, let me ask
years
you
of,
this question. Let me ask you this question directly to your experience as well. He said it's falling off. Directly as an experience to you being in law enforcement. I always tell people, look, take a stand, but you better realize they're going to come after you. They're going to do things to you that they wouldn't do to other people. So when I'm reading this on Andrew Tate and I see how defiant he's been in the public, to me, and I'm not condoning it, what I'm saying, this is how tit for tat works. This is how the battle moves forward. He's defiant. There's some judge, some prosecutor, something. Go bleep yourself, Andrew. What? Your mom's hurt? Oh, wow. Boom. Denied. Why? Because they see how defiant they are and they want to break the person. Does that happen, or is that just me watching too much bad non AI television?
no, when I went to law school, a big famous quote I remember hearing was, sometimes the judgment the judge gives out in the morning is based on what he had for breakfast.
Yep.
So you never know. I've been in court several times, uh, and honestly, you wonder what some judges are thinking. You could see personal biases come up in judges. I've been in, I'll use traffic court as an example. I've seen judges, if you went in there with a stop sign ticket, you were like, unless I present my case like a total moron, this person's guilty because this judge, for some reason, thinks everybody runs stop signs, and he must have got hit with somebody running a stop. He hates them. But other people, another judge, you bring him in for, say, a cell phone violation. You could have him on video with the cell phone next to his ear with his lips moving, and the judge would find him innocent just because they didn't like the law. So in this instance, this judge or judges, depending on, it went back and forth between different appeals, they've probably watched some of Andrew Tate's stuff online, and I'm sure some of them are like, if, screw him, he's going to sit and enjoy his house for the next, as long as I can hold him.
So I am right. And that's just human nature. I live my life now over the last 15, 20 years after I started my business with a lot of my decisions and beliefs residing in human nature. And I wish more people would do that because we would solve more of the world's problems by looking at them in a realistic way versus the libertarian utopian fantasy or the leftist take from the rich to pay the poor, yet the poor don't have to do anything themselves. I believe common sense, human nature, help one another. Seems like that's no longer part of the world. And with that, we will leave Andrew Tate. No trial date has been set. I'm pretty sure I know your answer, but I think they will find him guilty of something. Is my take on this. You get the final word with that question, and we will move on. We're going to go over the show about 5 minutes because we got some individuals we want to talk about. But give me your final thoughts on that. Do you think you're going to find him guilty of something, or do you think he has a possibility of being found not guilty?
Um, there is always the third possibility that this just never goes to court, or they decide not to charge him after screwing him over for the next 2 to 3 years and making him sit in Romania.
And there you have it, my friends. Sean with the final take. Okay, this is a very important segment to me, not because I care about it. People come and go, but when you're looking at it as a topic, you start to research it. And Sean, hundreds of well known people pass away, many wrestling icons from our time as a kid. Burt Young. Do you know the name Burt Young? No, you don't.
Is that
So, no, I'm just saying he's an
is it
example. Go ahead, go ahead.
was he wasn't the Rocky guy, was he?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
see?
I mean, many famous people died, is my point. But I had to reduce the list to a top 10. And so, what I decided to do is reduce it to people who made a cultural impact or were part of the pop culture phenomenon of their era. And I made a top 10 list, Sean, in the order of impact. So I may talk. I have a lot of notes, as you can see. We may not talk about them all, but I just wanted them there in case something piqued your curiosity. But I'm going to say their name, how old they were. I want your take. Sinead O'Connor, 56 years old, a musician, political activist, very famous for a Saturday Night Live incident where she kind of ripped up the Pope's image. She was also bipolar. Thoughts on Sinead O'Connor? And Nothing Compares to You was her big, massive worldwide hit that put her on the map.
Is that your number one for biggest celebrity
No,
death?
that is my number
Oh,
10. That is number 10
oh,
for
okay.
this
So
year.
we're going in from 10 to 1. Okay.
Yeah, gotta build
Uh,
some excitement.
well, I sort of want to know who's number one. But anyways, yeah, all I really do, I heard her song and I saw her rip up that thing on a Saturday Night Live skit, but otherwise, she didn't have too much influence on my life.
Same with me, but as a former Catholic, I found her vile and disgusting, but at the same time, I found her valid. Remember, the Catholic Church covered up a lot of crap. And my take isn't don't dish the Catholic Church or Catholics, but the men who and women who are the men who are running it, because it's not God that is vile and evil; it's the men that are corrupt and corrupt the name of God. So I kind of felt bad for her, but I didn't like her. Bob Barker, 99 years old, Price is Right host from 1972 to 2007. 35 years. The Price is Right is a cultural phenomenon. He's a massive, massive animal rights activist and a philanthropist, and he passed away from Alzheimer's. Oh, for the record, nobody knows yet what Sinead O'Connor died of. She was bipolar, so it could be anything from suicide to maybe medication to who knows. But hopefully she's in a good place. But Bob Barker died of Alzheimer's disease. Uh, your take, your thoughts.
All I gotta say is the price is wrong, Bob. Happy Gilmore.
Exactly. He gained more fame through that movie with a new generation. Okay, moving on to number 8, Tony Bennett, 96 years old. He's a musician. He's what you call a crooner. You know, the ones that grab the mic and they sing in that deep voice, and the women go, oh, he was 96 years old. He's very famous for a worldwide famous song, I Left My Heart in San Francisco. Sold more than 50 million records. The reason he has such a cultural impact, in my eyes, he transcended generations. He either influenced or worked with Celine Dion, Lady Gaga, Elvis Costello, Aretha Franklin, Frank Sinatra, Katie Lang, Amy Winehouse. And there's other names, but those names alone shows generations starting from the 50s on to today's modernized singer. His death, Alzheimer's disease also. What's your take?
I just remember him as a type of singer that's the Frank Sinatra type era, those type
Yes.
of singers. So
Yeah.
I got to look favorably upon him. I love those singers still to this day.
Yeah. And again, when you hear the term a crooner, an old crooner, that's what they're referring to. Moving to number, am I 7, Tina Turner passed away at 83. She transcended genres. She was famous for Mad Max, Thunderdome. That extended her fame. She was known for her extremely beautiful toned legs. And she was also an inspiration to many women after her story, some horrible domestic abuse at the hands of Ike Turner came out. Her death was natural causes. She was just a cultural phenomena of the 80s with the big pop culture, the big hair, the over the top shows. Thoughts on the legendary Tina Turner?
Yep, I remember her watching her perform, and she always wore a skirt, and everybody always talked about her legs. So it's good you brought
Yeah,
that up.
beautiful legs. Woo! All righty. Moving on to number 6. Jimmy Buffett, 76 years old, a musician. His cultural impact was his music, Margaritaville and others like it, and he impacted. He personified the island life. He was a persona, meaning he had a way he wanted people to live, or people perceived he wanted us to live the island mentality. He was also a business magnate worth hundreds of millions. His death was due to Merkel cell cell, which is a rare and aggressive form of skin cancer, which is kind of, it's not ironic, but I'm not shocked. Somebody who's out in the sun every day getting skin cancer, you know. But Jimmy Buffett, the parrot heads came about because of him. They weren't parrot heads because of Jimmy Buffett. They were parrot heads because that personified their laid back lifestyle. Thoughts of Jimmy Buffett?
Well, I will just say I got to look into Merkel cell cancer because I don't know too much about that. But it was sad to see him go. Even though I did get food poisoning at his Margaritaville in Las Vegas one year, I still don't hold that against him.
Oh my God. I have a tale that is worthy of a TV show or a short movie. My experiences at his bar when I was in the military and women were involved, and I was naive, not realizing this whole swath of women were spoken for by it's what you call it. It's a comedy. It would have been a great comedy that ends at the end of the day with the XO, executive officer, calling me up to his office in a very nonchalant, humorous, but serious way, telling me, here's the lines in the sand when we are at a bar and we're all drinking. All righty. What was that? Number 7? Was he number 7? Damn. No, he was number 6. Number
Yes.
5, Richard Roundtree, 81 years old. He played the role of John Shaft. Shaft. It was a great song in the 70s. Came out in 1971. It was at the beginning of what is called blaxploitation. It brought the black culture to the national stage and obviously had a massive, massive impact. And I was too small to have seen Shaft at the theaters, but even as a child, I knew who and what Shaft was. He was just a cool mofo, you know. Thoughts on Richard Roundtree? And Richard Roundtree's original Shaft. Most people think Richard Roundtree. That was who's that actor that's in the Marvel universe now, plays Nick Fury.
Samuel Jackson.
Samuel Jackson played him in the updated version, which didn't do as very well. But Richard Roundtree passed away. His death was pancreatic cancer, 81. Thoughts?
I didn't see the original Shaft either, but
I
sorry to see him
understand.
go.
And you know what? That's not surprising, being a white guy, and not because you're white. Latinos wouldn't know about it as much. Asians
Whoa.
today. No, because it was called blaxploitation. It was a whole industry that cropped up. And the only reason I saw a lot of them is because I loved the kung fu movies during Saturday afternoons. But they also showed a lot of blaxploitation movies in those time slots. So I grew up watching some of that. But it was a cultural phenomenon that transcended America. But you're younger than me by 10 years. So it kind of literally passed you by, is all that I'm saying. And being Anglo is also
So
a reason for
it's an age thing, not a white thing. Come on.
no, you're right. Yeah. You're right. Right. But I'm sure a lot of Black Americans your age probably, hey, Shaft is, probably watch. It's like Soul Train, watched mostly by blacks, but a lot of whites watch it also. So he was kind of that type of character. Okay, number 4, Miss Suzanne Summers, 76 years old, Three's Company from 1977 to 84. It was a pop culture phenomenon. She had another show, Step by Step. God bless her. She earned more money that way. But she was part of Three's Company. She died of breast cancer, which is, I was talking to my wife. I said, kind of ironic because her whole shtick was her boobs with the low cut tee and playing the dumb blonde. But she was fired because she wanted equity raise. People watched the show for the ensemble, but John Ritter was the actual star that made a lot of the magic happen, and she lost and got fired. Thoughts on Suzanne Summers? But she recovered, had a great career moving forward. She recovered. Your thoughts on Suzanne Summers?
I'll just say one thing. Thigh Master.
That's right, the Divine Lesson. There you go. All righty. Number three, the final three. Paul Rubens, 70 years old. What was his actual state? What was the name he was known as? Shot.
Pee Wee Herman.
Pee Wee Herman. It spanned generations. Pee Wee Herman was not a child's character when it first came out, but became a big cultural phenomenon. Had the Saturday morning show. All that came to an end when he got caught with his pants down in a theater. But he managed to redeem himself, recover, to have a secondary post career with the same characters, actually. His death was acute hypoxic respiratory failure. And that means his lungs couldn't release enough oxygen into the blood, and it gave him a couple of other issues as well. But that's what he died of. Number two, Pat Robertson. People are going, huh? Pat Robertson died at 93 years old, the 700 Club founder, the Christian Broadcasting Network founder. He was a media mogul. He actually built college university, Christian something, CBN University, but Christian something university. He blended religion with politics. That was his cultural impact. His biggest impact was in the 80s. He actually helped Reagan with his anti-drug message and his religious message. He was also, so he was a powerful behind the scenes player, presidential candidate. His religion obviously made him controversial because that was an era when Americans began to abandon religion in droves. He died of a stroke. He is actually very impactful in our culture. What are your thoughts on Pat Robinson? First, did you even know who he was? I mean, it sounds like a silly question, but I'm not sure.
Yes, I did know who he was, but because when I actually had to get up early enough in the morning to go to school back in the day, you flipped it through the channels. We didn't have 400 channels, so you flipped through one, and 700 Club was on, and he'd be on, but I would skip that for cartoons.
Exactly, I was the same. And the number one, this is terrible. The number one death. That's not a number one death, but the most well-known person, and likely most of you don't know who he is when I say his name, but you know who he is when I say some of the stuff he did. And that is Norman Lear. He died at 101 years old. He was a screenwriter and sitcom producer. He was part of creating or working with over 100 shows. His impact was on American culture. He brought in a comedic way, and it wasn't very realistic, but it began to open our eyes. I mean, the comedy itself was, it was more satire in how they portrayed it, but not the topics. He brought racial issues, political issues, and gave us a look at the working man that was successful and the poor as well in terms of poverty. He brought millions of hours into our homes via television and how we looked at minority single women and family relationships. Do you want to have? I want to give you the honor, Sean. What were some of the shows that he produced? Because this is what people will remember, or he
Yeah,
created.
I can't believe the same person created All in the Family, created the Jeffersons and Sanford and Son, because I've watched some old All in the Family clips, and I'm like, wow, you know. So I did not know he had that big an impact on all those shows.
He was a monster. He's arguably, I don't know, but I would say arguably one. He'll be in everybody's top 10 list of those who had the most cultural impact, regardless of what year they died. It was Good Times, Maud, Mary Hartman. Mary Hartman was one of the first syndicated shows I ever realized was syndicated, meaning it wasn't on at prime time, but like at 7 or 11 different time frames and one day at a time. His death was cardiopulmonary arrest brought on by congestive heart failure, which tends to happen at that age. The final comment I'll make before we close the show out, as we've run about 10 minutes over, is my partner said, I'm surprised you like Norman Lear because I'm a conservative and I have issues with today's tribal politics because I come from a mixed family. I may not look mixed, but our family, our extended a family from my first cousins, from my grandmother on, is extremely mixed. I'm the lightest of the skin. And I said, and I found that offensive when he said it. And I never told him that I found it offensive, but it's offensive because what I got out of Norman Lear was my first look at these issues, these problems. He humanized it while making it funny. I may hate Rob Reiner. I may look at him as a vile, disgusting, stupid, ignorant, hateful human being, which is what he is. But boy, did I love him as Meathead. But more importantly, it wasn't me loving him as Meathead. It was the storylines he brought. wanting to help the charities, the giving and all that. It was when I first became aware of that. Sanford and Son taught me more about father-son relationships. Good Times taught me about the projects, and I researched the projects as a child because of Good Times. And the one thing I'll never forget to this day is the projects were supposed to be temporary. They were never supposed to be permanent, and there was a reason for that, to help Black Americans. Instead, now it's become a generational, cyclical world of poverty. I never saw Maud, never saw Mary Hartman, though I knew of them one day at a time. Brought me one of my first crushes as a kid with Valerie Bertinelli, but brought the life of a single mother. And even though my mother wasn't single, she was alone a lot because my dad was in Vietnam during those times, and well, not necessarily those times, so I related to that. So Norman Lear had a profound effect, not only on me, but I believe, Sean, what I have just said is what millions of other Americans will tell you as well. Did he have any kind of profound effect on that, or were you, or these shows may have been a bit before your time as a child? Am I correct?
No, I watched the Jeffersons, mainly the Jeffersons. I watched some All in the Family, and Good Times. That's Dynamite, right?
Yeah, Dynamite.
Yeah, yeah. See,
J.J.
so
Walker, I think, or J.J.
yeah,
I can't
so
remember.
I mean, I have the memory of a goldfish, but I can recall some of these things. Yeah, so I did watch some of these shows, and got some good entertainment out of them. And congrats to him to live in 101. I only hope I can make it that long to collect a pension and stick
Exactly.
it to the city.
And my final comment on that, and we'll close the show out, is the only thing I didn't like was how they did show people of authority, mostly whites. They showed them as dumb, stupid, ignorant. But when you think about it, that a lot of blacks view that's how they were portrayed in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And maybe Norman Lear was creating satire out of that. But at the end of the day, I didn't like JJ. I liked the father the most. And Sanford and Son, I like the son. So the Jeffersons, I just love to hate on George, and I love Wheezy. So we all had our favorites. But God bless Norman Lear. Like you said, he lived to 101. And that about concludes our show, Sean. It was a great show, actually. We had a lot of topics. I thought the Screen Actors Guild may have been a little weak. I'll have to work on that. I dragged that out maybe too long. I apologize. But very important economic issue. And with that, my friends, I want to tell you, do not forget to visit us at Grumblings Media, at Rumble and YouTube under the Grumblings Media profile name, or you can listen to this and other podcasts at your traditional podcast stations, Apple, Google, Pandora, and Spotify, as well as our political podcast and our sports podcast. And for Sean and I, thank you for listening and watching. I was about to say points on the board, for listening to the Red, White, and Rude Pop Culture and Entertainment Podcast. And until next time, my friends, I bid you adieu.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these two boxes.